sort of include everyone in this. So, first of all, I thought I'd start by the place where I sort of ran across your name. It was actually in a newspaper. I was taking my kids.
Yeah, how did you find me?
Yeah, so I was taking my kids to swimming lessons, and there was a newspaper that was just sitting there on the benches.
It wasn't the police blotter, was it?
No. But it was something that was, it was this really great story in one of the weekly papers about the work that was going on in the Skagit River Delta, things along the Swinomish Reservation, and the politically charged issue a little bit there. And since I do some work in salmon restoration, I decided to read the whole thing. And then I saw your name, and I saw you wrap, and I said, wow, this is kind of a really, there's got to be a great story behind this. The article said you were Adventist, exactly. So how does someone who is involved in salmon restoration from a Native American perspective end up in an article, a newspaper article? I mean, why is this a big enough issue that, you know, it gets publicized all the way down here?
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Is this thing on? Okay, good morning. For those of you that missed me last night, my name is Brian Cladoosby. I'm from O'Connor.
Hold it a little closer to your mouth.
How's that?
Go ahead and speak up.
I'm almost biting it. Maybe I should try your mic.
Let's switch.
There. Is that better? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I turned it off or something.
It's green. Is that?
Okay. Well, I'm going to be talking about it a little bit this morning, but everybody's been up to the Skagit River. Everybody's been across the Skagit River. An amazing fact, out of every river system in the lower 48, every single river system in the lower 48, how many rivers in the lower 48 still has every species of salmon still spawning in its tributaries, wild salmon? Every species of wild salmon still spawning in its tributaries. How many rivers in the lower 48 still have every species of wild salmon still spawning in its tributaries? Any guesses?
0.
0. Somebody said 1. Any other guesses? I'm not charging you for guessing. You know, there's only one river system. It's really sad. In the entire lower 48, only one river system still has every species of wild salmon still spawning in its tributaries, and that's the Skagit River. That is our river. The Skagit River produces 1/3 of all wild salmon into Puget Sound every year. 1/3 of all the wild salmon heading out in the Puget Sound and into the ocean comes from the Skagit River. And so that's why it's so, our tribe has a treaty, right? How many know what a treaty is? How many know that the Constitution talks about treaties? The Constitution of the United States. The natives are specifically mentioned in the Constitution that the treaties with Native Americans are the supreme law of the land. And one of the issues in the treaties was the right for us to take and harvest salmon in our usual and custom places. And so the judge has ruled that we have the right to manage half the salmon in the state of Washington. So the Swinomish tribe is very active in, we're firm believers in 7th generation. Have you ever heard that term, 7th generation? It's a Native American term that we use, that we have to make sure that what the Creator has given us, we say that we do not inherit this land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Yes?
I just wondered if you were involved with Judge Bolt's decision.
We were very, very involved. I was just a little kid there back in '74, but yes, we were very, very actively involved, our tribe was, in the Bolt decision. That was the decision that allowed us to have 50% of the salmon that was going through the through our waters. And so salmon, we take it very seriously. We are very, very, very strong environmentalists in protecting the salmon and the water. And we run into industries that have run afoul, and I'll be talking about that later today, the industries that have polluted the Skagit River.
So there's an interesting story that I've heard that I've noticed is not necessarily part of the public discourse, but Billy Frank, I don't know if that's going to be part of your talk later on, so there are these treaty rights, right, and then they weren't always honored. And so that's
they were
a pretty
broken
recent
immediately.
decision.
Broken immediately.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that I wondered from your perspective, and the Adventist perspective in particular, I think the sovereignty of tribes is a particularly important idea. But from your perspective as an Adventist, where would you say that sovereignty derives from? So you said you're borrowing it from your children rather than having it passed down from
Right.
the past.
Right.
So does that influence the way that you organize?
Yes, from my perspective, I'm only here because of the grace of God, and I am known across the nation in Indian country as a Christian person, as a person of God, and we continually give God the credit. He is the ultimate sovereign, but it's in our culture and our traditions. We put a big emphasis on our Creator, and it is really awesome to see, because before the non-Indians got here, we always had a strong connection with the Creator. And I shared last night that there was this one community up in Alaska, an Alaska native village up there, the Eskimos, that worshiped the Sabbath even before they knew about the Sabbath. It was really cool to hear that story about how these natives were worshiping on the Sabbath even before the non-Indians got there, and talked about it. So it's we know that God is the ultimate sovereign, and we just give him the credit for everything that we do and are.
So you also talked about some personal challenges that you faced over your life, and I guess going back several generations too. The challenges associated with substance abuse and all of that. I'm wondering if there's, that's something that still influences policy now, right?
Yes, our focus, we still focus heavily on alcohol, but we are starting to destroy that cycle. We say it takes 2 generations to break a cycle. Have you heard that term? It takes 2 generations to break a cycle. And so some of the influences that we have had to overcome, number one, I talked about the boarding school experience last night, the policy of the federal government to kill the Indian, save the man, where our grandparents were sent to boarding schools, and they were basically, my good friend here that lives in Seattle, he said that their goal was to turn natives into good German Lutheran farmers. and so, they weren't able to be connected with their tribes, they weren't able to speak their language, they weren't able to share their stories, they weren't able to sing their songs. They were basically Americanized. We call it assimilation. We were assimilated. And so my grandfather did not speak the language. He did not teach it to my parents, who did not teach it to me. So it takes 2 generations to break a cycle. And so because my grandfather did not teach my father, who did not teach me, there's 2 cycles right there that were broken. And also, one of the things, historic trauma is a big issue in our communities, and the historic trauma derived from those boarding school experiences. So when our parents and grandparents grew up, their experience of that boarding school left a very sour taste in their mouth, so education was not a top priority. So my grandparents' children, the dropout rate from high school was probably 90+% in Indian country. And so And so education wasn't a top priority. The statistics are slowly going down where we are starting to put a bigger emphasis on education. And so alcoholism, education, poverty, drug and alcohol abuse, all of those issues are very prevalent yet, but in my community and communities I see across the nation, like we have community gatherings every month, and we honor 5 elders every month. We put a strong emphasis on our elders. We don't want them to feel like they're throwaways. And so we get together every single month. We stand 5 elders up in front of us and honor them. And every month, we could ask the question, okay, how many of your kids, or how many of you parents are raising your kids in a drug and alcohol-free home? The hands are just going up like crazy. Like crazy. It is really cool. And so we're trying to break the cycle of education, drug and alcohol abuse. I said last night we had a young girl who just graduated from the University of Washington, Alana Quintasket. She was raised in a drug and alcohol-free home, just completed her education at the University of Washington, and we invested $130,000 into her education, the tribe did. And so she was able to go to the University of Washington basically with a full ride scholarship with the tribe. And so, her grandparents did not graduate, but her grandmother graduated, her mother graduated, and now she graduated. So that's 2 generations that broke the cycle right there. And she's the oldest of 4 kids, and they'll all graduate from college. It is, and so breaking those cycles is, we're seeing it more and more, and it is just awesome to witness and be a part of.
Yeah. So you said another thing that has changed relatively recently, it sounds like for you, has to do with the financial resources that are now available.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates these opportunities you're talking about, but I imagine that there are challenges associated with that too. So, distribution, you have some tribes that are able to raise money, others that still aren't. And you talked Pine Ridge, I think you mentioned, there are reservations that still really don't have very much, right?
They don't have anything. Yeah. There are still third world conditions out there in Indian country, and it's really, really, really sad. There is just, like I said last night, no Marshall Plan for Indian country. They're basically just isolated, put out on a reservation, and everything that and it's, before the non-Indian came here to the United States, and in my community especially, there was no class systems. Nobody was poor. Everybody had food on their plates every day. The Creator took very, very good care of us. In fact, in our culture, when we had accumulated too much wealth, we gave it away. It was called the potlatch, and we kind of like to still do that today, but in different ways. We do it during funerals and during namings. We do a lot of giveaways, and so I forgot your question. What was it? the resources that we have now. Yes, it's amazing. I've been on my council for this is my 31st year on the tribal council, and we've actually went from debt managers to asset managers. In one generation, it's just amazing, and it's all because of gaming. And like I said last night, I wish it wasn't gaming that has allowed us to manage these resources, but it is. We're a very, very small casino in the Northwest. We're nothing like the Cladoosby, the Muckleshoots, or the Puyallups. What we make in 1 year in profit, we make about $15 million a year in our casino. Tulalip and Puyallup and Muckleshoot will make that in about 3 or 4 weeks. And so, just being able to manage that. And last night I talked about the multi-million-dollar medical clinic that we have, the multi-million-dollar dental clinic that we have, the free daycare, the Birth to Six program, taking care of our elders' utilities, the scholarship funds, braces. I mean, it's just, going back to school. How many of you grew up very, 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 very poor? You know what it was like to go to school that first day and not have those, brand new clothes like a lot of the other kids. Self-esteem is a big thing, so we give each of our kids $400 to start the school year to make sure that they have new clothes walking into the school that first day, and we provide them with backpacks and the supplies. And at Christmas, you that grew up poor know what it's like not to have anything at Christmas. That was my life growing up, very, very dirt poor. And so at Christmas, we give every tribal member $500, and that's the extent of what we give. The Puyallup tribe, they give $2,000 a month to every tribal member. And the Tlalops, the Tlalops give about $75 million a year to their tribal members in revenue sharing, and the Puyallups give close to $150 million a year in revenue sharing. And we're just not there. We just cannot do that. We want to put all of our dollars into all of our programs. Heroin, meth, the pill abuse, OxyContin, has been a problem the last 10 years. And so we took $750,000 and we hired a doctor and we started a Suboxone program. Anybody know what Suboxone is? Suboxone is a drug that is given to addicts to help them wean themselves off of this heroin and OxyContin and all these pills that they get addicted to. And in 2 years, we've had 50 tribal members, 33 of them voluntarily show up, and a big percentage of them have already graduated from the program and now are productive members of society. And it's really cool. So we look at educating our kids, we look at our Suboxone program, we look at those things as investments in the future. We don't look at it as we look at it as a preventative measure. We don't look at it as a cost to us. We look at it in the long term, the 7 generations, when these individuals are raising kids in drug and alcohol-free homes. These individuals are productive members of society. They have jobs, they're paying taxes, they're not involved in the court system, the cops aren't picking them up, they're not going to jail, they're not going to prison. So those have big costs to us in our communities. Our jail costs were very, very, very significant over the last 10 years, very significant, because we have to pay that. And so we look at this investment that'll pay off dividends in the future.
So, as that becomes more successful, does that mean that people tend to move away from the reservations?
Swinomish is, I'm not sure how many communities, we're very, we're not a Swinomish nation, we're not a Swinomish Indian nation. At one point they wanted to change it to Swinomish Indian Nation, but the chairman before me says, I don't want to be referred to as the Sin tribe. S-I-N. And so we've always been known as the Swinomish Indian Tribal Community. We look at ourselves as a community, and there's like a little over 900 of us, and the majority of us live on our reservation. And like Alana, she moved here to Seattle, she got her 4-year degree, she's already back home, and we will get a job for her and put her to work, because we are very, very, very tight. As I said last night, at one point, just not too many years ago, we had 6 generations of my family still alive within about a 1 to 2 mile radius, 6 generations. And so we don't leave. Some communities, like the very, very poor communities, you'll see a lot of those tribal members leaving, like the Crow Nation. Their unemployment rate is 50–60% right now. So you'll see a lot of those tribal members just leave the reservation because there's nothing there. Same with Pine Ridge. You'll see a lot of the Dakotas, if they can afford it, to move away and get off the res. But at Swinomish, we tend to stay home.
So there were certainly Native Americans throughout the Americas, not just in the United States. So as you're, getting more to your national level role, what kind of coordination do you do sort of nationally and then maybe internationally too?
Mm-hmm. Nationally, we meet quite often. I could easily travel, like yesterday I was supposed to be in Phoenix at a meeting, but it just didn't work out. I could easily travel every week, and I usually do. Like 3 out of the last 4 weeks I was in Washington, D.C. The only thing that I was in San Diego. So D.C., San Diego, and then D.C. Next week I get the week off, and the week after that I go to Reno. And that's usually my schedule. I'm usually going somewhere, and we do a lot of networking. And it is really cool. And recently I was up in Vancouver, BC, meeting with the president of the organization similar to ours here, meeting with him, talking about, I will be going up to, I believe it's Montreal. Do you remember him? I'm flying somewhere, from Vancouver to somewhere in Canada for their national meeting here in a few months, and then he will be coming to ours to address ours. So, and then there's this thing called UNDRIP. Nobody knows what UNDRIP is. Let me see if United Nations Declaration, let me see, for Indigenous Peoples. It's very historic, and it's very ironic that we tried very, very hard to get the rights of indigenous peoples around the world recognized at the UN. And it's very ironic that the three countries that had the worst track record for genocide against Native Americans, the Australians, the Canadians, and the US government, were the last three countries in the world to hold out signing UNDRIP. In the United States, President Obama finally signed UNDRIP about 4 or 5 years ago. And the United States, who has the worst track record of genocide in the world, he finally signed it. And so we had our very first conference in September at the United Nations, specifically dealing with indigenous issues around the world. So that was very, very, very historic.
Yeah, there was an interesting side note I read a few weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago or so. There was a paper that had come out in some scientific journal saying, when you look at the age when humans started having the strongest impact on the earth, you can actually find a period in the early 16th century when the atmosphere changed because so much forest started growing back in the Americas because of the changes, the dramatic changes in populations that were occurring through, I think, genocide and disease and other things that had happened in the colonial era. So it's striking. So at this national sort of political scale, what are so you mentioned the environment, and I think that's all often associated with Native American Indian issues. But there are others, and there must be some debate within the communities of what the main issues should be. I mean, are there divisions that are informative to talk about?
Politics, you will always have divisions. I'm very fortunate. On my council, I could not be the national president, and it is only by the grace of God that I'm allowed to do this job. But politics can be very, very nasty in Indian country. It's totally different. For example, the mayor in the town of LaConner, he will not get nearly the calls that I get. And he could walk around the town of LaConner of 900 people, and he won't know everybody. That's not me at Swinomish. I know everybody and everybody knows me. And so, when you have to sit your uncle down, who is your role model, who has taught you a lot of things about our culture, and sit him in your office and let him know that either he's going to resign his position or I'm going to fire him. That's tough. Or when your dad calls you up and says, call that housing director and tell that housing director to give your sister that job. And, having to tell dad no is very hard. So I'm very fortunate that our politics at Swinomish right now, there's 11 of us on our council. We are elected to 5-year terms. I, as the chairman, have to be elected every single year in my position. So it's not like 4 years or 5 years I only get 1 year. And then I have to be elected by the 11-member body every year. And so we're very fortunate at Swinomish to have 11 council members in a canoe paddling in the same direction with the same goals in mind to provide the best essential governmental services for our people. And it's not like that normally across Indian country. Usually you have councils that are very, very divided, and it's very similar to politics here in Seattle or in King County or in the federal government. But I'm very fortunate at Swinomish to have the government that we have, and everybody's on the same page. There's no D's, no R's, no cliques, no family disputes. Everybody's got the same goal in mind, is to provide the best services for our people.
So you mentioned the canoe. So you must not be able to get out in the canoe very much anymore.
We get out once a year. Anybody familiar with Canoe Journey? Canoe Journey?
No.
So if you do any surfing on the internet, just Google Canoe Journey. It is a very, very fascinating experience. Nina and I bought a canoe about 8 years ago, and we went on 6 canoe journeys. Our goal was to basically create Christians on canoes. And so when we go to these celebrations, we hand out all of our Adventist literature. We hand out DVDs, we have drawings for Bible covers, and it's just our opportunity. One year, we had the Adventist Mobile Health Mobile, whatever that, some of you are familiar with that. Our pastor, he goes with us. Our pastor goes sometimes on our journeys. He's been on a number of them with us. And so we've had the Adventist presence at our canoe journeys. So we'll be on our canoe again this summer.
Is it, so this evangelism that you're talking about, so is being a political figure make that challenging for you?
Not at all. Not at all. Has God used politicians in the Bible? Does God still use politicians today? This is the life that God has chosen for me, and I accept it, and I just have an opportunity to do a lot of good with this position that I have, and to, health is a big issue right now in Indian country. We have the diabetes is off the charts, obesity is off the charts. All of the diseases, the cancers, everything, the statistics are just off the chart. We did this report called The Quiet Crisis, Healthcare in Indian Country, and I am working with some national organizations whose main goal is to destroy type 2 diabetes and obesity in Indian Country. And working with this gentleman who, anybody heard of Tiger Woods? You hear of Tiger Woods? You all hear of Tiger Woods? Well, my friend and Tiger are brothers. There's nobody closer. They're not blood brothers. Well, they are blood brothers. He's a native, so I don't know. But anyway, his name is Nota Begay. He is he's on the Golf Channel now. If anybody watches the Golf Channel, is an analysis. He's the first full-blooded native to win a PGA Tour event, and he's won a number of PGA Tour events. And him and Tiger started the junior circuit at the same time, and they were the only kids of color in the junior circuit in this golf, program 30 years ago. And so Tiger Woods' dad took Nota Begay under his wing, and they just created this bond that they still have today. And so Nota Begay's goal is to raise money to fight type 2 diabetes and obesity in Indian country. So the health message has been a big part of my work. Like I said last night, I am the senior advisor to the Secretary of HHS, the second largest department in the federal government. So I interact with the Secretary Burwell quite a bit, and so it's good to have that access. And it's very rewarding. But once again, the proof is in the pudding to be able to see the results. Are there any questions out there before? Yes.
You mentioned a name which sounds familiar. I think we used to have David Quintasket here. Do you know that name?
I know the Quintasket name. I've got Quintaskets. The girl that graduated from the University of Washington, her name is Alana Quintasket. Mm-hmm. And so that's the Colville family. And so there's, I would bet $1 that David Quintasket's from Colville. That's the only place I've heard that name, the Quintasket name. We've had, let me see, 2 or 3 families from Colville marry into Swinomish. And 2 Quintaskets married in, 2 individuals, 2 men moved from Colville to Swinomish and married into our tribe. And so I don't personally know David Quintasket, but I know the Quintasket name. Yes.
gaming is probably a euphemism for gambling. I've heard it said that casinos are the Indians' revenge. And since you're transferring the bad results from this gambling from the Indians to the white people, how do you rationalize that?
That's a really, really good question. Not too long ago, how many remember the girls' dorm at Venice Academy getting burned down? The next day after that academy burned down, do you know who opened a bank account, put $10,000 in a bank account? The Muckleshoot tribe. Did you know there was a controversy at Auburn saying that we cannot accept this money because it comes from gaming? There's people that believe that. Like I said last night, I wish it wasn't gaming because it is a predatory, it is a disease. I've had family members that went to prison because of their addiction to gaming. I wish it wasn't the opportunity that has been given us to lift us out of the poverty that we've experienced. We've never had any economic development opportunities whatsoever in Indian country. And yeah, I wish it wasn't gaming, but it is what it is. And we take that $15 million and we put it into social service programs and put it into our kids and put it into our elders. But yeah, it's really, I'm really conflicted because of the predatory nature and what gambling is. It's a vice. And,
I suppose you could say the Lord works in mysterious ways.
He does. We wouldn't have a multi-million-dollar medical clinic, dental clinic. We wouldn't have these programs. We wouldn't have these scholarships. I mean, we wouldn't be able to invest. We're trying to diversify. I shared with you last night that we are the largest producer of salmon in the nation for any tribe. We can more salmon in the nation than any tribe, and we export more caviar to Europe and Japan than any tribe. So we're trying to diversify. Our goal is to create $100 million in sale business through the fishing industry. And we work right now with about 50 nations from Alaska down to California, and we're looking at going up to Kotzebue, Alaska to get all their chum salmon. The salmon roe is like the slot machine. The slot machine makes all the money in the industry. The salmon roe makes a lot of money for us in our fishing industry. And I shared with you last night that we just signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Patagonia. If you ever go into any Patagonia stores here in the future, you'll see salmon jerky. If you eat salmon, and it'll say native catch on it, and that came from our reservation. And so we're trying to diversify. And yes.
You had a brief comment about industrial pollution. How are you getting on with Burlington, Northern Santa Fe?
Anybody? It's so ironic that I end up in the front page of the Seattle paper and Cairo News and Como News and King News, and I don't know if any of you follow the news, but it's just ironic. And so everybody's familiar with the Bakken shale oil that's going here through Seattle. All that, a lot of that is going up to our refinery on our reservation. We have 2 refineries on our reservation. In 1889, we got my historian is so awesome. So in 1889, we put the railroads on notice. They crossed our reservation without our permission in 1889. And we put them on notice that that was illegal and we didn't want them to do it. But the railroad at that time is like, don't you know who we are? We don't care about you little tribes. You're insignificant in the big picture. And so in 1889, they illegally crossed our reservation. In 1976, we sued them in federal court, saying that, look, we can't get anywhere with this company, so we took them to court. In 1991, the court was finally finalized in 91, and out of that came a very unique agreement. You won't see too many of these. If any lawyers in the room? Any easement lawyers? So the agreement was very unique. It stated that Burlington Northern could only send 25 cars across our reservation a day, each way, 25 in, 25 out. And it also said that the railroad must let us know what they are transporting across our reservation. So between 1991 and today, they failed to live up to their bargain. And 3 years ago, they started accepting Bakken crude oil at the Tesoro refinery. When we found out, we didn't know it was Bakken, we didn't know what was in the cars, but when they started going across with 100 cars, we told them that, look, that's way above our agreement. And that was 3 years ago. For a year and a half, they just basically didn't give us the time of the day. We'd write letters, we'd call, and it was once again that attitude, don't you know who we are? You know, we built this country. And finally, we got their attention with a very nasty letter I encouraged our lawyers to send in my name, and we got their attention. So about a year and a half ago, we started sitting down with them. About a month ago, we got a letter from them saying that basically, in a nutshell, they don't care that they have an agreement with us for 25 cars. We have federal laws on our side that say that if we have a customer that needs 100 cars of Bakken oil, we're going to supply it to them. And so that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. And so Tuesday, or was it Monday? Monday we went to federal court here in Seattle, and it just so happened that Senator Cantwell had her meeting with the mayor and the county commission, Dow Constantine that day when we filed our lawsuit. So it was, people think that we orchestrated it, choreographed it. And so we will go to court here, and we will ask the judge to give us to issue a injunction against them from sending more than 25 cars across our reservation. So my friend called me up and says, "You're taking on Warren Buffett." And I'm like, "Who? You're taking on Warren Buffett. He owns that railroad."
Well, thank you. I think we need to